Hi everybody, my name's Andrea. Thanks for stopping by the channel. This is Knit Notes episode 3. If you are new here, if you've never seen any of my other videos, Knit Notes is where I basically take my journal of my knits and talk through them on here just so everyone can see, kind of for me to know how I did a project and how it went and all that kind of stuff for the future. Since I'm a beginner knitter, I haven't been knitting that long, and I really wanted to make sure that I had enough or kept records of everything that I did so I could see in the future how I progress. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these notes right here, talk through them about the latest project that I made, which is the Tolsta Tank square neck version in 4-ply. I have made it one time before. It was the very first garment I ever made, and I made it in the DK weight version. And so this time I had quite a few issues with that one whenever I did it the first time. So if you want to see what happened with it, you can go check out that video. It's Knit Notes episode 1. And this one is going to be the newest version that I made out of in the 4-ply version of this pattern. So let's go ahead, jump into the Tolsta tank. There's 3 versions of this tank in this pattern, and then each of those versions has 2 different weight options. So I am making the Tolsta tank square neck 4-ply version by Rebecca Clow at the Crayabea. I cast this on June 12th, 2026, and finished it on June 26th, 2026. So the first time I made the Tolsta tank, it took me about 10 days to make that, and that was the DK version of the square neck. And this one took me 14 days to complete the 4-ply version of the same garment, just in the different weight of yarn. So last time I did not make a gauge swatch. This time I did make a gauge swatch. So I did that. So I was very proud of myself that I actually made a gauge swatch. When I did gauge swatch for this one, my gauge was 28 stitches by 36 rows, and the pattern gauge is 24 stitches by 32 rows. So when I started knitting it, I planned to up my needle size so it would be, more correct to pattern gauge. But in the end, it didn't really matter because like this didn't stretch out too much, and I stretched it when I like blocked the gauge swatch. But the garment had so much more weight, obviously, that it ended up, loosening up quite nicely. And so I'm really happy with the way that it happened. So I used yarn wise knitting for olive pure silk in the color pea shoots. So the amount of yarn that I used for this, I originally had 3 50-gram balls, and I used 2.44 balls. So 667.1 yards, 610 meters, so about 122 grams of this for that size 3. So I'm kind of excited because I always like to make little things out of the rest of the leftover yarn. So I'm kind of happy that I actually had some yarn left over for that. So that's great. I needed a size 3 of the tank top, and so the intended garment finished measurements were a full bust of 40 inches, 101.5 centimeters. The armhole depth was supposed to be 9 inches, 22.5 centimeters, and the body length 13 inches or 33 centimeters. Like I said, I knitted a size 3, and my finished garment measurements ended up being 37-inch full bust measurement instead of the 40, so 94 centimeters. An armhole depth of 8 inches, or about 20 centimeters instead of the 9 inches, and then the body length was obviously 13 inches because you knit 2 13 inches, so that one turned out fine. The needles that I actually used 3 different needles. I used Chalgu red lace circulars, the 32-inch circulars in size US 2 and 3, so 2.75 millimeter and 3.25 millimeter, and then a Chalgu US 2.5, so 3 millimeter and 24-inch circulars because I'm a doofus. I didn't have a smaller circular to knit the armhole straps, so I had to make do with what I had, and that was what I had. So it didn't really make too much of a difference, but I was kind of happy because I wanted it with a little bit of negative ease, and so it made me, happy with those finished garment measurements. I wasn't really upset about that at all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and show you my Tolsta tank. I'm so excited about it. I really, really love this, and this yarn makes such a lovely fabric. It's really light. It's really hot here right now. I'm sure it is everywhere, maybe except in the southern hemisphere where it should be cold, hopefully. But it's a really nice fabric, and I'm really happy about it. So what I was talking about the needles, so I knitted the bottom hem in those 3.25 millimeter needles, because originally I was supposed to change to a 4 millimeter in the body portion, and I just forgot. So I was planning on knitting it with that, and then so I just kept going after the ribbing, and I was like, oh, I was supposed to change needles, but I forgot, so it's okay. So now let's talk about the process of how it was for me knitting it. It was a lot easier this time because I knew the construction, or the basic construction of the top, which was great. Like I said, I was planning on knitting the main body with US 4s because of my gauge swatch. So like I said, I cast on the bottom ribbing with the US 3.25 millimeter needles, and then once I made it to the end of that ribbing, I did forget to change to those larger needles, and so I just kept knitting the body with those same 3.25 millimeter needles. The front and the back neck ribbing, it is done with US 2, so 2.75 millimeter needles. And then I was also going to use those for the armholes, but then realized that I did not have them in a smaller cord circumference, so I ended up knitting the straps in US 2.5, so 3 millimeter needles. So that's why I have three random needle sizes: 2.75, 3, and 3.25 millimeter needles in all of the ribbing. So every single bit of ribbing is a different size, which you can't really tell. I can't tell. So the only one that you can kind of tell is the bottom. I think it's just because it's larger. It's like a wider section of ribbing. So another difference I found in this, for me knitting it versus the other one, the DK version, is there was P2 tog, so purl two together. I had never done that. I had only done knit two together before, so it was just the opposite of that on it, obviously. So I did have to look up a video for that, and I found one by the Blue Mouse Knits. And any of these videos that I talk about that I use as like instructional kind of tutorial videos, I have a playlist on the channel that has all of those ones saved in it. So if you're a beginner knitter like me and you need a refresher, or you just need to learn how to do something that's in a pattern, or in one of these patterns specifically that I've spoken about, I do put those videos in there in case they might be helpful to you as well. The other one that I did not know how to do from the first one is the SSP, so slip, slip, purl. So I found a tutorial by Suzanne Bryan called Easy SSP, and so that was really helpful to me because she showed the correct way to do SSP, because I saw a few videos that showed what looked like a wrong way to do it. I don't know if that's true. I don't know enough about knitting to know if there's a wrong and a right way to do SSP, but the Suzanne Bryan, she said that a lot of people do it improperly, and so I was like, okay, I need to do it properly, I guess. So she has two versions of it. She has the easy SSP, and she also shows the regular version of SSP. So like I said, these did not occur for me in the DK weight version of the pattern, only the 4-ply. It could be due to me knitting a different size. In the DK I knit a 4, and in this one I knit a 3, or it just might not be in that pattern version. I'm not sure, but I do know that I did not have any experience with those two, purl two together and slip, slip, purl, before knitting this pattern. Another thing that I really absolutely loved about that was the fabric of the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. It's the first time I've worked with any Knitting for Olive yarn, and the Pure Silk specifically. I've never used that, and it's also the first time I've used fingering weight in a pattern. So it was a bunch of new experiences for me, which I really like because it gives me things to learn, and I love learning new things. I try not to do too many things to get overwhelmed in one project, but I do quite enjoy learning a few at a time, and in any new project that I do. So some other thoughts that I had about it. It is a little bit splitty compared to the other yarns I've used. I've never used another fingering. I've never used a different silk or like a linen blend, anything like that that would have kind of the same lightness to it of a pure silk. So it is the most splitty yarn I have ever used, but that doesn't mean too much because I've never really used any other ones like it. So right now we're going to take that with a grain of salt, and later on I'll have to come back and figure out if it's really splitty. It didn't put me off. Like I wouldn't not use it because of that. It didn't bother me, but I did notice it. So I just wanted to mention it. My one by one ribbing always looks a little bit untidy. So for some other projects, I would like to look into ways to maybe remedy that. I've done a very minimal amount of searching because I haven't needed to do it yet, to see if there's something to fix that. So if you have any ideas you'd like to put down in the comments about how to fix one by one ribbing or to make it look more tidy. I don't know if it's like a universal problem or if it's just my tension and I'll get better with it over time. But I did want to like mention that in this video, so when I look back, my one by one ribbing is a little untidy at the bottom, especially. The top ones do not bother me as much. The neckline and the armhole ribbing doesn't bother me as much. The bottom one is the one that kind of looks a little bit messy, I would say. Another thing that I don't know if I'm doing it improperly or if it's just a fiddly thing, but whenever I have to do backwards loop cast on inside the middle of something, like for the straps, you know, you can knit. I had to do it on the market bag by Sheep and Stitch also, where, you know, you knit along and then you need stitches in the middle to make some kind of strap and you have to do backwards loop cast on. The casting on part is easy, but every time I try to knit into those, you know, backwards loop casted on stitches, I just have a really hard time doing it. It starts to get frustrating. So I'm like, okay, I have to put this down, or heaven forbid if it's like, I don't know, 200 of them or something, it'd be crazy. But luckily it was only 28, or it's not, you know, less than 30. It wasn't very many, so it wasn't like a big deal. But I did notice it. And that's another thing. Do you like knitting into backwards loop cast on stitches? Is there a special way to do that so it's not as fiddly? I'm not sure about that. So that's one of those things that I guess I'll figure out the longer time goes on and the more projects that I have knit. So I think that is pretty much everything I wanted to say specifically about my Tolsta Tank. I'm really looking forward to wearing this summer. It's nice and light, and so I hope that I get a lot of use out of it since it's actually one that I can wear, and I'm really happy about it. So I did want to talk about the next project that will be Knit Notes episode 4, whenever that comes along. But I am also going to knit with Knitting for Olive again, pure silk, and I'm going to be using the French anemone colorway. So it's really, really pretty. It's a nice kind of like purpley blue color, like a dark purple blue maybe. I'm not exactly sure what they would classify it as, but it's a really, really pretty color. So I'm going to be using this. I don't know which top I'm going to knit with it yet. I have two choices. So they both one's kind of, you know, a lot more difficult, I would say, something I've never done. And one is a kind of like a next logical step for me after the Tolsta Tank. So the first one I may do is The City by Tori Yu. So it's the same style top as the Tolsta Tank. However, Tolsta Tank is knit bottom up and The City is knit top down. Also, it has a few interesting things that may fix or change some of the things that I don't necessarily like about my knitting of the Tolsta Tank. So it has twisted rib in it. That's something I haven't done yet. It also has, I believe, a provisional cast on, and I have not done any projects with provisional cast on yet. So it is giving a couple new skills that I could learn in still a relatively simple style top. Also, I can use the yarn I have to make it, which is great. I have enough already to do that. I really love the color French anemone, and it's the 27th of June today, so July is right around the corner, and I think next week it's supposed to be into the hundreds here in North Carolina. So That would be something nice to a nice light, pure silk top to wear. The next one that it just released today, and when I saw it, um, I am not. I have not seen a lot of pointail things that I've been drawn to because I don't really need, big thick cardigans or vests or anything like that. Like, so when I saw the Marielle top, I thought it was so pretty. I like bought it right away. And I am very calculated usually with when I buy patterns. I really think about it before I buy one. And when I saw that one, I was like, okay, I definitely am going to knit this. I just don't know if I'm ready for it yet. So, but I did go ahead and buy it. So it might supersede the other one if I get adventurous enough. I don't know. So we'll see. So have you knit The City by Tori Yu? I always hear great things about Tori Yu patterns, and so I'm really looking forward to knitting one of her patterns eventually, so I can see exactly how she writes patterns and all that kind of thing, because I really enjoy trying different designers' patterns, which has been a lot of fun. And so I don't know, have you seen the Marielle top? Just let me know if you've knitted a Tori Yu pattern or the city specifically in your experience with it, or if you've seen that Marielle top recently, because like I said, it just released today, and I don't know which version I would want, the regular tank or the peplum, but they're both adorable and I really love those patterns. So the next thing I'm actually going to do is take a short baby break from garments to use up some of the leftover yarn I have from some of the projects that I've already knit. I'd like to do a vlog style video for that, kind of showing, because I do need to frog my first Tolsta tank, the one that is really too big for me. And so I need to frog this one. So that's something I need to do. I also have a bunch of yarn that this was for my wisteria tank, and this was from a raven beanie that I made. I also now have the leftover knitting for Olive, and then some You and Me yarn from the Moonstone Plaid play kit. So I've got quite a little selection of yarn left over from projects that I need to use up. So I'd like to make like a small blog knitting some of the different things that, I would like to make their smaller projects and not fingering weight, so I get just a little break from the fingering weight pattern before I go back into it. So I've got some DK and bulky and stuff like that. Well, the knitting for Olive Pure Silk is obviously fingering, but so I want to do some smaller projects to get that going before I jump into the next garment project. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video about knit notes, just talking about the project that I made, I do have 2 other knit note videos out currently, the original Tolsta tank that I made, as well as the wisteria tank. And then also, if you want to see my knitting journey from the beginning, from the where I learned to cast on to and to making a garment, I do have a vlog style video up on the channel about that, so you can check those out if you'd like to. I really appreciate you watching. So like I said, thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful or enjoyable in any way, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more things like this from me. Hopefully it was helpful for you, and I plan to make some more, obviously, knit notes videos, more podcast style, and then like I said, I'm going to try and make a vlog about knitting all of those little projects that I want to use the leftover yarn for. So thank you very much. Have a great day. See you later.